Elena had always been a curious girl. Growing up in a small village, she often found herself exploring the woods behind her house. The trees, the streams, and the animals felt like friends to her. She loved the peacefulness of nature, the way the wind whispered through the leaves, and the smell of pine that filled the air. Now, at 18, Elena was moving to the city for the first time. She had received a scholarship to study at a prestigious university. It was a dream come true, but it also meant leaving behind everything she knew. As the bus took her away from her village, she felt a mix of excitement and fear. The city was so big, so different from the quiet life she had always known. When she arrived, Elena was overwhelmed. The noise, the tall buildings, and the crowds of people made her feel small and out of place. But she was determined to make the most of this opportunity. She moved into her dormitory, met her roommate, Clara, and started attending classes. At first, everything seemed fine. Elena was doing well in her studies, making new friends, and getting used to the city. But soon, she began to feel a sense of unease. There was something about the city that didn't feel right. It was almost as if it was hiding something dark and dangerous. One evening, as Elena was walking back to her dorm after a long day of classes, she noticed a man following her. He was dressed in a black coat, and his face was hidden by a wide-brimmed hat. At first, she thought it was just a coincidence, but when she turned onto her street and saw that he was still behind her, she began to feel scared. She quickened her pace, but the man did the same. Her heart started to race as she realized that he was getting closer. Just as she was about to reach her dorm, the man suddenly grabbed her arm. "Wait," he said in a deep, urgent voice. "You're in danger." Elena was too frightened to respond. She tried to pull away, but the man tightened his grip. "Please," he said, "listen to me. You have to be careful. The city is not what it seems. There are traps everywhere." Finally, Elena managed to break free. She ran into her dormitory and didn't stop until she reached her room. She locked the door behind her and collapsed onto her bed, her heart pounding. Who was that man? What did he mean by traps? She couldn't make sense of it. Clara noticed that Elena was shaken. "Are you okay?" she asked. "There was a man, he followed me," Elena replied, still trying to catch her breath. "He said I'm in danger." Clara looked concerned. "Did you see where he went?" "No. I ran away as fast as I could." "We should report this to campus security," Clara suggested. Elena nodded, but deep down, she wasn't sure if reporting it would help. Something told her that this was bigger than just a stranger following her. Over the next few days, Elena tried to put the incident out of her mind, but it wasn't easy. The man's words kept echoing in her head. The city is not what it seems. There are traps everywhere. What did he mean? Was he just trying to scare her, or was there some truth to what he said? One night, Elena was sitting in the library, studying for an upcoming exam. The library was quiet, almost empty. As she read through her notes, she noticed something strange. There was a book on the table that she didn't remember placing there. The title caught her eye, The Hidden Secrets of the City. Curious, she opened the book. Inside, she found maps of the city, but they were different from any maps she had seen before. These maps showed underground tunnels, secret passages, and symbols that she couldn't understand. There were also notes written in the margins, warning of dangers and traps hidden within the city. Elena's hands started to shake as she realized that this was no ordinary book. Someone had left it here for her to find. But who? And why? Suddenly, the lights in the library flickered.
She looked around, but there was no one else in sight. The flickering continued, and then, for a brief moment, the lights went out completely. When they came back on, Elena saw a shadow moving at the far end of the room. She quickly packed her things and left the library, taking the book with her. As she walked back to her dorm, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. The city felt different now, more sinister, as if it was alive and aware of her every move. When she reached her dorm, she showed the book to Clara. "Look at this," she said. "I found it in the library." Clara flipped through the pages, her eyes widening. "This is creepy, Elena. Who would leave something like this for you?" "I don't know," Elena replied. "But I think it has something to do with that man who followed me." Clara frowned. "We should take this to the police." "No," Elena said, shaking her head. "I don't think they would believe us. This is something we need to figure out on our own." Over the next few days, Elena and Clara studied the book together. They learned that the city was built on top of a network of tunnels and chambers, some of which were thousands of years old. According to the notes in the book, these underground passages were connected to a secret society that had controlled the city for centuries. The society was known as the Guardians of the Trap. They were said to have created traps all over the city, traps that were designed to catch and punish those who tried to uncover the city's secrets. The notes also mentioned that the traps were not physical, but psychological. They preyed on the fears and weaknesses of those who encountered them. Elena couldn't believe what she was reading. It sounded like something out of a horror movie. But as she thought about the strange things that had been happening to her since she arrived in the city, she began to wonder if there was some truth to it. One night, Elena and Clara decided to explore one of the locations mentioned in the book. It was an old, abandoned building on the outskirts of the city. According to the map, there was an entrance to the underground tunnels hidden inside. They arrived at the building just as the sun was setting. The place looked eerie, with broken windows and vines growing up the walls. They found a way inside and began searching for the entrance. It wasn't long before they discovered a trapdoor hidden under a pile of debris. "This must be it," Clara whispered. Elena nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. They opened the trapdoor and found a set of stairs leading down into the darkness. "Are you sure about this?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. "We have to know the truth," Elena replied, trying to sound braver than she felt. They descended the stairs, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air grew colder and damper as they went deeper. Finally, they reached the bottom and found themselves in a narrow tunnel. As they walked through the tunnel, they saw strange symbols carved into the walls. The symbols matched the ones in the book. They continued on, their footsteps echoing off the stone walls. Suddenly, they heard a noise behind them. It sounded like footsteps, but when they turned around, there was no one there. They quickened their pace, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger. At last, they reached a large chamber. In the center of the chamber was a pedestal with an ancient-looking book on it. The book was bound in leather and had the same symbols on the cover as the ones they had seen in the tunnel. Elena approached the pedestal and reached out to touch the book, but just as her fingers brushed the cover, the ground beneath them began to shake. The walls of the chamber started to close in, and a loud, grinding noise filled the air. "It's a trap," Clara screamed. Elena grabbed the book and they ran back the way they had come, but the tunnel was collapsing behind them. They sprinted up the stairs and out of the building just in time. As they reached the street, the entire building crumbled into a pile of rubble. They stood there, panting and shaken. Elena still held the book tightly in her hands. "We almost didn't make it," Clara said, her voice trembling. "But we did," Elena replied. "And now we have this." Back at their dorm, Elena and Clara examined the book they had found. It was written in an ancient language that they couldn't understand, but there were illustrations that showed more traps and symbols. As they tried to make sense of it, they noticed something strange. The illustrations seemed to change each time they looked at them. It was as if the book was alive, adapting to their thoughts and fears. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "This isn't just a book," she said. "It's part of the trap." Clara nodded. "We need to get rid of it." But just as they were about to close the book, they saw an illustration that made them freeze. It was a picture of their dormitory, with the same symbols etched into the walls. Beneath the picture were the words, "The final trap." "What does that mean?" Clara asked, her voice shaking. Elena didn't know, but she had a terrible feeling that the trap was already set. They had been lured into it from the moment they found the first book in the library. The next few days were filled with tension. Elena and Clara tried to go about their normal routines, but the sense of impending doom hung over them. They couldn't escape the feeling that they were being watched, that the city itself was closing in on them. Then, one night, they received a message on Elena's phone. It was from an unknown number, and it simply said, "The trap is sprung." They looked at each other, fear in their eyes. "We need to leave," Clara said. But as they tried to pack their things, the lights in their dorm went out. The door to their room slammed shut, and they heard footsteps in the hallway. The air grew thick, and it became harder to breathe. "We're trapped," Elena whispered. They huddled together, not knowing what to do. But then, Elena remembered the words in the book. The traps are psychological. They prey on your fears. "We have to stay calm," she said. "That's what they want. They want us to panic." Clara nodded, trying to steady her breathing. They sat in the darkness, waiting, but nothing happened. Slowly, the air became lighter, and the door to their room creaked open. They cautiously stepped out into the hallway. It was empty, and the lights flickered back on. "We did it," Clara said, relief flooding her voice. "We broke the trap." But Elena knew it wasn't over. The trap had been set long before they ever found the books. The city itself was the trap, and as long as they stayed, they would never be free. Elena and Clara made a decision that night. They packed their bags and left the city for good. As they boarded the bus that would take them back to Elena's village, they felt a sense of relief. But as the bus drove away, Elena couldn't help but look back at the city. She knew that it would continue to lure people in, setting traps for those who dared to uncover its secrets. She also knew that she and Clara were lucky to have escaped. The city was a place of shadows, a place where reality and illusion blurred together. It was a place where the mind could become its own worst enemy. But Elena and Clara had survived, and they would never forget the lessons they had learned.